Hey, tonight we explore the forgotten rituals of medieval rest beneath ancient oaks. Welcome to a time when the boundary between dreaming and waking blurred beneath dappled sunlight and rustling leaves. The sacred oak, keeper of secrets whispered, through centuries, once sheltered weary travelers, thoughtful scribes, and hard-working peasants alike. Tonight, you'll experience the gentle embrace of medieval afternoon repose, where time slowed and dreams flourished under the protective boughs of nature's most revered sentinel. If you're enjoying this peaceful moment, please like, share, and subscribe. What memories do oak trees hold for you in your hometown? Perhaps they've stood witness to your own moments of peaceful reflection. Dim your lights now, like the sun filtering through a canopy of ancient leaves. Turn on a fan to mimic the gentle medieval breeze that once caressed tired brows. Settle in as your modern concerns fade away, and let your thoughts wander gently into a past where oak trees offered sanctuaries of peace to weary souls. You walk along a well-worn dirt path, your leather shoes pressing into earth that has known countless footfalls before yours. The year is 1328, and summer's warmth envelops the English countryside in a golden haze. You've been journeying since daybreak, a humble cloth merchant carrying samples to the neighbouring town's market. Your shoulders ache pleasantly from the weight of your pack, filled with bolts of undyed linen and small pouches of rare dyes from distant lands. The midday sun stands high overhead, pouring heat upon your travel-worn frame. Sweat trickles down your temple, leaving salty trails through the light dust on your skin. You can taste it when you lick your lips, which have grown parched from your morning's travel. The weight of the day hangs heavy, not unpleasantly, but in the particular way that signals the perfect time for rest. Up ahead, the path curves around a gentle slope, and there it stands, an ancient oak, its massive trunk wider than 3, men with arms stretched wide. Its branches extend outward in a sprawling canopy of deep green leaves that rustle gently in the mild breeze. This tree has stood sentinel here since before your grandfather's grandfather drew his first breath. Locals call it the King's Oak, though no king has ever visited this humble corner of the realm. You approach slowly, almost reverentially. The oak's presence commands a certain respect, a quiet acknowledgement of its age and endurance. As you draw closer, you notice how the quality of light changes. Dappled shadows dance across the ground in patterns complex and soothing. The air feels different here too, cooler and somehow more substantial, carrying the earthy scent of moss and old wood. At the base of the tree, the roots have emerged partially from the ground, creating natural seats worn smooth by generations of travellers. This is no accident. This oak stands at the perfect distance from the nearest village, a convenient spot for the midday rest that is your customary right. In this medieval world, the practice of the midday nap is not merely permitted, but expected, a rhythm of life as natural as the turning of seasons. You remove your pack, setting it carefully against the trunk. Your hand brushes against the bark, rough and deeply furrowed, yet somehow comforting in its solid presence. Small insects move in the crevices, going about their business with quiet determination. A line of ants marches purposefully up one side, carrying tiny fragments of the world back to their hidden kingdom. Settling yourself between 2 great roots that seem to have formed themselves precisely for a weary traveller's comfort, you lean back against the trunk. The bark presses into your back through your simple linen shirt, not uncomfortably, but as a reminder of the boundary between flesh and wood. between the brief span of human life and the oak's centuries. You reach into your pack and withdraw a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Unwrapping it reveals bread still slightly warm from the morning's baking, a small wedge of hard cheese, and a handful of dried berries gathered from last autumn's harvest. This simple meal tastes extraordinary after your morning's exertion. You savor each bite, aware of the textures, the chewy crust of the bread giving way to soft interior, the sharp tang of the cheese against your tongue, the concentrated sweetness of the berries. From a leather flask, you take small sips of ale, weak and slightly sour, but refreshing nonetheless. It was brewed in your own home, part of the weekly routine your wife oversees with practiced efficiency. As you drink, you think of her, the way she hums while working at the loom, how she laughs with her head thrown back when truly amused, the careful way she counts out flour for baking. You'll be home again in 3 days' time, hopefully with good news of profitable trades. Your meal finished, you brush crumbs from your lap and watch them scatter across the ground. They will not go to waste. Already a bold robin has landed, nearby cocking its head at you with bright, inquisitive eyes. You toss a few larger crumbs its way and smile as it hops forward to claim them. Now comes the true purpose of your stop. The medieval day is structured differently from those of later centuries. You rise with dawn and expect to pause when the sun reaches its zenith. This midday rest, this sacred pause, is known as meridiana, the nap that divides the day and refreshes the spirit. Beneath oaks like this one, travelers, farmers, and nobles alike have paused to honor this rhythm for generations. You arrange your pack as a pillow and settle yourself more comfortably against the tree. Above, the leaves shimmer and dance, creating a natural tapestry of light and shadow. The effect is mesmerizing. Patterns shift and flow with each breath of wind, never repeating yet somehow familiar. Fragments of blue sky peek through gaps in the canopy, impossibly deep and distant. The sounds around you form a gentle chorus, leaves rustling against one another with a sound like distant rainfall, birds calling to one another in the higher branches, the occasional buzz of an insect passing near your ear. From somewhere distant comes the faint sound of a woodsman's axe, rhythmic and determined, but far enough away that it becomes part of the ambient texture rather than an intrusion. Your eyelids grow heavy as the combination of morning exertion, satisfying meal, and gentle surroundings works its inevitable magic. You don't fight it. This rest is as essential to your day as bread to your table. In this medieval world, sleep is understood differently. The unbroken 8 hours considered ideal in later centuries is unknown to you. Instead, your sleep comes in segments, a longer period during the night, and this treasured interlude during day's height. As your consciousness begins to drift, you enter the state medieval people call dorve, neither fully awake nor completely asleep. A borderland where thoughts and impressions flow with dreamlike quality while maintaining a thread of awareness. In this state, solutions to problems often present themselves. Creative ideas emerge, and a particular kind of rest rejuvenates both body and spirit. You see the face of your youngest daughter, who lost her first tooth the day before you departed. Her gap-toothed smile floats before you, merging with the patterns of light through leaves. You consider a new dye technique a traveler described to you last market day. In this half-dream, you watch colors swirl and blend on imaginary fabric. The negotiations awaiting you tomorrow arrange themselves in your mind, strategies forming without conscious effort. Time passes differently in this state. impossible to measure, but perfectly calibrated to your needs. Your breathing slows and deepens, your muscles release their held tensions, and your mind wanders freely along paths both practical and fanciful. This is the gift of the oak, a sanctuary for this essential pause. You are not alone in this practice. Throughout the medieval countryside, similar scenes unfold beneath other ancient trees. In fields not far from here, farmers have paused their labour to rest under hedgerow oaks. The lord of the manor himself observes this same ritual, though he reclines on a wooden bench carried out specifically for this purpose beneath an oak in his private garden. Monks in the abbey 3 miles distant have put aside their illumination work to rest in the cloister garden, where a young oak planted by a long-dead brother now provides ample shade. What makes the oak special among trees for this purpose? The answer lies partly in practical concerns. Its broad canopy provides more extensive shade than other common trees. But there is more. The oak holds special significance in your world. Christians associate it with strength and endurance, while older beliefs whisper that oaks stand at the threshold between worlds, their roots reaching into the mysterious realm beneath the earth, while their branches commune with the heavens. Whatever the reason, experience has taught that rest comes easier beneath an oak. Dreams beneath its branches seem more vivid, more meaningful. Some claim that wisdom can be absorbed from these ancient sentinels during sleep, as if their centuries of witnessing human striving might somehow be transmitted to the receptive dreamer. As your consciousness floats in this pleasant middle realm, you become aware of other presences nearby. Opening your eyes slightly, you observe through half-lowered lids as a pair of travellers approach along the same path you followed earlier. They are an older man and a youth, perhaps father and son, or master and apprentice. They notice you but show no surprise. Finding another traveller napping beneath this oak is expected, not intrusive. With quiet movements and low voices, they settle on the opposite side of the massive trunk. Their conversation drifts to you, in fragments, discussion of tanning techniques, a mention of prices at the market town ahead, concern about a sick cow left behind, ordinary concerns of ordinary lives, yet somehow made significant by the setting. Soon their voices taper off as they too surrender to the oak's invitation to rest. You drift deeper now, your thoughts turning more abstract. You dream of acorns falling into rich soil, of tiny seedlings unfurling their first leaves, of saplings growing straight and strong through decades, of mature trees spreading their branches wide, of ancient giants like the one sheltering you now. In your dream state, the process that would take centuries happens in moments, generations of humans passing like shadows beneath this endless cycle of growth and renewal. A sense of deep peace settles over you, your individual concerns momentarily, balanced against the oak's patient perseverance. What are your worries about tomorrow's trading when measured against the tree's centuries? Yet the oak offers not indifference but perspective, a gentle reminder that life continues in its cycles, regardless of any single day's triumph or tragedy. Something cold touches your hand, startling you to greater wakefulness. A snail has made its slow way across the root beside you and now investigates your still fingers with curious antennae. You watch its deliberate progress, its shell a perfect spiral of amber and cream against your skin. With gentle movements, you lift your hand away and watch as it continues its unhurried journey across the root and down into the cool earth beneath. The quality of light has changed while you rested. The sun has moved westward and the shadows have shifted and lengthened. Your body tells you that approximately an hour has passed, the traditional length of the meridiana rest. You feel refreshed, your mind clearer, and your limbs renewed with energy for the afternoon's journey. stretching. Cautiously, to avoid disturbing your still sleeping fellow travelers, you gather your possessions and prepare to continue your journey. As you stand, you place your palm against the oak's trunk in a gesture somewhere between greeting and farewell. The connection feels significant. Your brief rest a small moment in the tree's long existence, yet somehow honored by its sheltering presence. This practice of napping beneath oaks connects you to a continuous tradition. Romans rested beneath Italian stone pines, but as their empire spread northward where oaks dominated, the practice transferred to these native giants. Before them, Druids venerated oaks as sacred spaces where wisdom could be accessed. You stand in an unbroken line of humans who have paused beneath these trees, dreamed in their shade, and continued onward refreshed. You shoulder your pack, adjusting the weight comfortably across your back. The path ahead beckons, still several hours of walking before you reach the next village, where you'll seek lodging for the night. Tomorrow will bring the bustle of the market, the careful dance of negotiation, the exchange of goods that forms the backbone of your livelihood. But the memory of this rest will stay with you, a pocket of peace in a day of purpose and movement. On your return journey, you'll likely stop here again, as will countless travelers in the years to come. Some will be merchants like yourself, others pilgrims on sacred journeys, soldiers marching to distant conflicts, messengers carrying news, both wonderful and terrible, ordinary people moving between the fixed points of their lives. The oak will receive them all without judgment, offering the same gentle shelter it has provided you. It will stand through storms and droughts, through wars and peace, through changes in kingdoms and beliefs. Perhaps someday, centuries hence, curious people will wonder about those who rested beneath its branches in this distant medieval past. Maybe they will recognize something of themselves in this simple human need for pause and restoration. With a last glance at the magnificent tree, you continue on your way. The path curves around the hill, and soon the oak disappears from view, though its presence lingers in your refreshed body and quieted mind. Ahead, the afternoon stretches out, full of possibility. Your footsteps fall into an easy rhythm, and you find yourself humming a tune your mother sang when you were small. 2 days later, having concluded your business successfully, you find yourself once again approaching the King's Oak on your homeward journey. This time, you arrive as evening draws near. The light has the golden quality particular to late afternoon, making the oak's leaves shimmer like polished metal. The tree casts a longer shadow now, stretching eastward across the sloping ground. Though it's not the traditional time for the meridiana rest, you feel drawn to pause here again. The day has been warm, your pack is heavier with traded goods, and the prospect of communing briefly with this ancient sentinel before continuing to the night's lodging is appealing. You settle once more between the great roots, your back finding the same comfortable hollow against the trunk. This time, you notice details that escaped your awareness during your previous visit. A heart with initials has been carved into the bark about the height of a tall man's reach, old enough that the tree has nearly healed the wound, but still visible as a smooth depression amidst the rough texture. You wonder about the carver and the object of their affection. Did their love endure as the oak has endured, or was it as ephemeral as the seasons? Higher up, you spot a small hollow where a branch once grew and then was lost, perhaps in some long-ago storm. A family of sparrows has made this space their home, flitting in and out with busy purpose. Their chittering conversations create a counterpoint to the deeper cooing of wood pigeons somewhere in the higher branches. The oak is not merely a tree but a world unto itself, hosting countless lives within and beneath its expansive canopy. From this angle, with the lowering sun behind it, you can see how the oak's shape has been influenced by prevailing winds over decades. It leans slightly, its strongest branches extended toward the east, as if reaching for the rising sun. There is a lesson in this. Even something as seemingly immovable as this great oak responds to the consistent pressures of its environment, adapting slowly but surely over time. You close your eyes, not to sleep this time, but to listen more intently to the oak's particular music. The sound of wind through oak leaves differs from that of other trees, fuller somehow, more substantial. Each species speaks with its own voice. The aspen's nervous chatter, the pine's sibilant whispers, the beech's smooth murmuring. But the oak's voice has a depth and resonance that speaks of age and steadfastness. Opening your eyes again, you notice movement at the edge of the clearing. A red fox pauses, its sharp face turned toward you with alert caution. For a moment, your gazes meet across the space between human and wild. The fox's eyes hold an intelligence utterly different from your own, yet undeniably present. After assessing that, you present no immediate threat. It continues on its way, disappearing into the undergrowth with a flick of its russet tail. These brief connections, with tree, with bird, with fox, remind you of your place in a world both wider and more intricate than daily concerns might suggest. The medieval understanding of nature is not the sentimental appreciation of later centuries, nor the scientific categorization that will someday come. Instead, it is a practical acknowledgement of coexistence, tempered with both wariness and wonder. As dusk approaches, you reluctantly rise to continue your journey. The nearest village is still an hour's walk, and you wish to arrive before full darkness falls. Night travel is both impractical and, in many regions, prohibited by local custom or law. The medieval night belongs to different creatures, both natural and, in the common understanding, supernatural. With your hand once more pressed briefly against the oak's solid presence, you make a small wish that you might pass this way again in future seasons, that the tree might continue its patient growth, that the world might retain enough stability for such simple pleasures to remain possible. It's not a prayer exactly, but something older and more instinctive. An acknowledgement of mutual witnessing between conscious being and ancient life. As you move away along the path, now tinged with the purple light of approaching evening, you carry with you more than just the memory of rest. The oak has given something less tangible but equally valuable. A moment of connection with something that transcends the brief span of human concerns. A thread linking you to past and future through the simple, profound act of pausing beneath. Branches that have sheltered countless travelers before you and will shelter countless more after you are gone. In the years that follow, you will return to this spot many times, in different seasons, under different circumstances, carrying different burdens and joys. The oak will change almost imperceptibly, adding rings to its hidden heart, healing old wounds, suffering new ones, continuing its slow conversation with earth and sky. And each time you rest beneath its canopy, you will be both the same person and someone new, changed by the experiences that flow through human life like water through a stream bed. During one bitter winter, illness will keep you housebound for months. In your fever dreams, you will see the king's oak standing silent under snow, its bare branches etched against steel-grey skies. The vision will comfort you somehow, knowing that it endures whether you are there to witness it or not. And when health returns with spring, your first longer journey will take you to this spot, to place your hands against bark dampened by melting frost and feel life stirring once more in both yourself and the ancient tree. When your eldest son is old enough to accompany you on trading journeys, you will bring him to this oak and watch as he explores its massive roots and marvels at its canopy. You will share the Meridiana rest together, his young dreams mingling with your older ones in the dappled shade. Without needing to articulate it, you'll be passing on not just the practical knowledge of trade routes and rest spots, but a deeper wisdom about the rhythm of work and rest, about finding sanctuary in the natural world, about the relationship between human time and tree time. This is how traditions persist, not through grand declarations or formal teachings, but through shared experiences that weave themselves into the fabric of daily life until they become inseparable from the culture itself. The practice of napping beneath oaks is one such tradition, humble yet profound, practical yet touched with something approaching reverence. The tradition will continue long after your particular footsteps have faded from the path. Other travelers will discover or rediscover the perfect marriage of human need and oak nature. Children born centuries after your passing will drowse beneath oak boughs, their dreams influenced by the same filtered light and gentle rustle that shaped your own. And perhaps, in some distant future beyond imagining, when the rhythms of human life have been transformed by changes you cannot foresee, someone will pause beside an ancient oak and feel an echo of connection with those who rested there before. They might not understand the formal structure of the medieval day or the specific cultural significance of the Meridiana, but they will recognize the essential human experience of finding peace beneath spreading branches, of surrendering briefly to the need for rest, of entrusting one's vulnerable sleeping self to the protective presence of a living thing whose existence spans centuries. In this way, the simple act of napping beneath an oak forms a continuous thread through human experience, changing in its details and significance through time, but fundamentally unchanged in its essence. The meeting of human and tree, of brief life and long life, of activity and rest, creates a moment outside of time's usual flow, a pause that refreshes not just the body, but the deeper self that longs for connection with something greater and more enduring than individual existence. As you finally move beyond sight of the oak, continuing your journey homeward in the fading light, you carry this connection with you, a small but perfect gift from an unexpected source, a memory that will return to you in quiet moments throughout your life, a taste of peace that transcends the boundaries of your medieval world and touches something universal in the human experience of finding sanctuary beneath the shelter of ancient trees. And now, this story draws to a close. Take a deep breath as we gently move forward in time into the next chapter of your journey. Whispers of forgotten wisdom carried on ancient winds, where time thins between the realms of waking and dreaming. Sun-dappled patterns dance across closed eyelids as you drift into the sacred space where medieval souls once found respite beneath sentinel oaks. You walk along a winding path that cuts through a vast forest in the heart of Normandy, some 40 leagues from Paris. The year is 1247, and the world moves to rhythms both familiar and strange to your modern sensibilities. Your feet are clad in simple leather shoes, worn supple from years of treading these very forest floors. The fabric of your linen tunic whispers against your skin, dyed a muted blue from local woad plants and belted with a length of hemp rope. A small pouch dangles from this belt, containing a carved wooden spoon, a small knife with a bone handle, and a few precious copper coins. The summer heat has reached its zenith, and sweat beads upon your brow, trickling down to sting your eyes. You have spent the morning assisting with the haymaking, your muscles aching pleasantly from honest labour. The great scythes have been swinging since dawn, cutting wide swaths through the meadows that border the village of Boisvert. Even the Lord's fields have been harvested today, fulfilling part of your seasonal obligations to the manor. The air around you thrums with life. Buzzing insects dance in shafts of golden light that pierce through the forest canopy. Overhead, oak leaves rustle in a gentle breeze, their whispers carrying tales centuries old. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the earthy fragrance of moss, sun-warmed bark, and wild herbs that grow in abundance along the path's edge. Your fingers brush against a sprig of thyme, releasing its pungent aroma into the air. The forest floor cushions your steps, a mosaic of fallen leaves, pine needles, and velvety moss. Small twigs occasionally snap beneath your weight, the sound startling a nearby thrush that takes flight in a flurry of wings. Your gaze follows its path upward, toward the interlacing branches that form a cathedral-like vault above. Sunlight filters through in dappled patterns, creating ever-shifting constellations on the ground before you. As you continue deeper into the woodland, the sounds of the haymaking fade. The calls of workers, the rhythmic scraping of whetstones against metal, the laughter of children gathering behind the mowers. Now you hear only forest sounds, the melodious warbling of birds, the gentle rustle of leaves, the occasional scurrying of some small creature through the underbrush. You are not heading home to the village yet. The day's work has paused, as it always does, for the sacred period of midday rest, what some call the meridiana, or what will someday be known simply as a nap. But this is no mere indulgence. It is the wisdom of generations, a practice as natural as breathing to the people of your time. When the sun reaches its highest point, when the heat grows most oppressive and the body most weary, it is time to seek the blessed shade and surrender to gentle slumber. After a few more minutes of walking, the trees begin to thin, revealing a small clearing. There, standing in magnificent solitude, is your destination. An ancient oak tree, its massive trunk wider than 3 men could encircle with outstretched arms. Its branches spread outward and upward, forming a protective canopy that seems to embrace the small patch of earth beneath it. This particular oak is well known to you and to many in your village. Some say it has stood here since before the old Romans came, perhaps planted by druid hands in times beyond memory. The ground beneath the oak is worn smooth by countless bodies that have sought respite here over generations. Moss grows thick on the northern side of the trunk, a splash of emerald velvet against the weathered bark. Several exposed roots create natural hollows in the earth that seem perfectly shaped to cradle a human form. This is no accident. This oak has been a midday sanctuary for longer than anyone in the village can remember. You approach reverently, as one might enter a church. The temperature drops perceptibly as you step into the shade, blessed relief from the summer heat. Your fingertips brush against the oak's bark, rough, fissured, alive with tiny worlds of lichen and insects. Some say the oak is sacred to the old thunder god, but the village priest insists it was beneath an oak that the Holy Virgin once rested. Either way, there is something undeniably sacred about this space. From your belt pouch, you retrieve a small cloth bundle that holds your midday meal, a chunk of dark bread, a sliver of hard cheese, and 3 dried plums saved from last autumn's harvest. You settle yourself against the trunk, finding the hollow that seems made for your body, a space worn smooth by years of your own repose. The ground is cool beneath you, the earth still holding the morning's freshness despite the day's mounting heat. As you unwrap your modest meal, you notice others arriving at the clearing. Matilda, the weaver's widow, with her young son in tow. Old Martin, whose rheumatic hands have earned him lighter duties in the haymaking. Two village girls carrying water skins and giggling behind cupped hands. Each person offers a nod or quiet word of greeting before finding their own place beneath the oak's generous canopy. There is something deeply communal about this practice, yet also intensely personal. Each person creating a small island of privacy in this shared sanctuary. You chew your bread slowly, savouring the nutty flavour of the barley flour mixed with acorn meal, a common addition in years when the grain harvest is modest. The cheese is sharp against your tongue, its taste intensified by the summer heat. Between bites, you watch a line of ants march purposefully across a nearby root, their tiny bodies glistening in a stray sunbeam. When your simple meal is finished, you brush the crumbs from your tunic, careful that they fall onto the earth rather than your clothing. Birds will find them later, completing the circle of giving and receiving that defines life in your world. You take a long drink from your wooden flask, the water inside still cool from the morning's drawing from the village well. Now comes the moment you've been anticipating since mid-morning, when the work grew hardest and the sun most punishing. You stretch out your legs, position your small leather satchel as a pillow beneath your head, and adjust your body to fit the contours of the earth. Above, the oak leaves shimmer and dance, creating an ever-changing mosaic of light and shadow. You watch this natural spectacle with heavy-lidded eyes, feeling the tension in your muscles slowly unwind. You are not simply resting, you are participating in an ancient ritual that connects you to every person who has ever sought midday respite beneath this tree. The villagers call it gathering oak wisdom. This practice of sleeping where the tree's roots delve deep into the earth and its branches reach toward heaven. They say that oak dreams are different from ordinary dreams, that the ancient trees share their memories with those who sleep in their embrace. As your consciousness begins to drift, you notice how the quality of sound changes. Birdsong becomes more distinct yet somehow distant. The rustle of leaves transforms into whispered conversations you can almost understand. Your breathing slows, deepens, synchronizes with the subtle movements of the great tree above you. Just before sleep claims you completely, you become aware of the others around you. The soft snores of old Martin, the whispered prayer of Matilda, the quiet humming of one of the village girls as she braids wildflowers into a crown. There is profound comfort in this shared vulnerability, this collective surrender to rest in the day's most sacred hour. Your dreams come quickly, colored by the filtered green light that penetrates your closed eyelids. You dream of the oaks, deep roots drinking from hidden springs far below the earth. You dream of birds building nests in the highest branches, of generations of squirrels hiding acorns in secret places, of storms weathered and droughts survived. The oak shares its memories generously, infusing your slumber with ancient wisdom that will remain with you even after you wake. Time behaves differently in this dreaming state beneath the oak. What feels like moments might be an hour. What seems an epic journey might occupy only minutes of true time. The villagers say this is because the oak remembers the old ways of measuring days, not by rigid hours, but by the quality of light, the movement of shadow, the subtle shifting of seasons. In your dream, You walk alongside a man dressed in strange clothing, leather armor of a style you've never seen, with intricate knotwork etched into metal plates at his shoulders. His beard is braided, and he speaks to you in a language you shouldn't understand, but somehow do. The oak remembers, he tells you, gesturing to the tree that seems younger in this dream vision, yet unmistakably the same. When my people came, from the northern seas, this guardian was already ancient. We learned to honor its spirit, as did those before us and those who will come after. The dream shifts, and now you witness a young woman in a simple white gown placing flowers around the oak's trunk. Her prayers are to gods whose names have long been forgotten, yet the reverence in her movements feels familiar, echoing the way the village priest bows before the altar. Each generation finds its own truth in the oak's shade, she says, though her lips don't move. The tree does not judge which prayers are worthy. Another shift, and suddenly you are seeing through the oak's awareness, a strange, slow perception where decades pass like breaths. You feel yourself rooted deeply in the rich soil, drawing nourishment from the dark earth while your highest branches commune with the sky. Countless human lives flicker past, children who grow old beneath your boughs, generations who seek your wisdom and shade, hands that touch your bark in reverence or casualness. You understand, in this moment, why the meridian asleep beneath an oak is considered sacred. It is a brief merging with something that experiences time and existence in a profoundly different way. The oak's memories flow through your dreaming mind. Roman legionaries resting beneath these same branches, their red cloaks spread on the ground, speaking of homes far to the south. Traveling monks pausing on journeys between monasteries, unfurling precious scrolls in the dappled light. A noble hunting party, their falcons hooded and perched on gloved hands, sharing wine and laughter during a midday pause. The tree remembers, them all without judgment or preference, each human life a brief, bright moment in its long existence. As your dream deepens, the boundaries between your consciousness and the oak's ancient awareness grow more permeable. You begin to perceive the complex network of roots extending outward from the massive trunk, intertwining with the roots of other trees, creating an underground conversation carried through fungal threads that connect the entire forest. This hidden world pulses with its own rhythm, exchanging nutrients and information in a language older than words. You feel the presence of creatures that make their home in and around the oak, families of mice nestled in hollows near the roots, generations of insects living entire lives within the fissures of bark, owls that have claimed the highest branches as their domain for countless seasons. The oak hosts them all, part of an intricate community that exists in delicate balance. The dream shifts again, and you witness the oak through changing seasons. The triumphant unfurling of tender green leaves in spring, the deep, verdant fullness of summer, the glorious transformation to gold and amber in autumn, the stark, beautiful architecture of bare branches against winter skies. Through it all, the tree stands steadfast, bending with storms but never breaking, adapting to each season's demands with patient grace. Something about this cycle speaks deeply to your human heart, offering wisdom about resilience and the art of standing firm while remaining flexible. In your dream, you understand that this is why the village elders insist that important decisions should never be made without first consulting the oak through the meridian asleep. The oak's perspective transcends human concerns, offering clarity that comes from a longer view of time. Gradually, your awareness begins to shift back toward waking, The dream images grow less vivid, the oak's memories receding like a tide leaving treasures on the shore of your consciousness. You become aware once more of your physical body, the cool earth beneath you, the gentle pressure of bark against your back, the rhythm of your own breathing. You open your eyes to find the quality of light has changed. The sun has moved westward in its journey across the sky, and the shadows beneath the oak have lengthened and shifted. You've slept perhaps an hour, maybe a little more, the perfect duration for the meridiana rest. Any shorter would leave, the body craving more. Any longer would make returning to work difficult. Around you, others are also stirring. Old Martin rubs his eyes and stretches his arthritic fingers, looking momentarily younger as he emerges from his own oak dreams. Matilda gently wakes her son, who protests with a sleepy murmur before reluctantly sitting up. The village girls are already standing, retying their headcloths and brushing leaves from their skirts. You rise slowly, taking a moment to place your palm against the oak's trunk in a gesture of gratitude. The bark feels different somehow, more alive beneath your touch, as though your dreams have forged a deeper connection between you and this ancient being. You gather your few belongings, tucking the empty food cloth back into your belt pouch. "Good dreams?" asks Matilda as she passes, her son's small hand clasped in hers. You nod, though good seems an inadequate word for the visions that still echo in your mind. "The oak was generous today," you reply, using the traditional phrase. She smiles in understanding. It always knows what we need to see. With that simple exchange, she continues on her way, rejoining the path that leads back to the village and the afternoon's work. As you prepare to follow, you notice something you missed upon arriving. A small hollow at the base of the trunk where previous sleepers have left offerings of thanks. A few wildflowers, freshly picked, a carefully carved wooden acorn, a bright pebble from the stream. Without thinking, you reach into your pouch and withdraw one of your precious copper coins, placing it reverently in the hollow. It seems a small price for the wisdom received. The walk back to the hayfields feels different than your journey to the oak. Your body moves with renewed vigor, muscles relaxed and mind clear. The meridiana sleep has served its purpose, not merely rest for the body, but nourishment for the spirit. The practice is so deeply ingrained in the rhythm of village life that even the Lord's steward does not question it, understanding that workers return more productive after their oak-blessed slumber. As you emerge from the forest edge, you see the haymaking has already resumed. Men and women move in practiced rhythm across the field, their scythes flashing in the afternoon light. Children follow behind, gathering stray stalks into bundles. The sweet scent of fresh-cut hay fills the air, mingling with the earthy smell of the forest that still clings to your clothing. You rejoin the work without fanfare, taking up your rake to turn the morning's cutting so it dries evenly in the sun. Your movements are economical and sure, your mind focused yet somehow expanded by your time beneath the oak. You notice things you might have missed this morning. The particular shade of blue in the sky, the song of a lark overhead, the satisfying texture of dried grasses against your palms. As you work, you find yourself considering the winter ahead. In your oak dreams, you glimpsed a vision of heavy snowfall deeper than usual. Perhaps it would be wise to gather extra firewood in the coming weeks, to ensure the village stores are sufficient. You make a mental note to mention this at the next gathering of elders. Such practical guidance is another gift of the Meridiana, sleep, one that has helped your community survive through countless seasons. The afternoon passes in steady labor, the sun arcing across the sky toward the western horizon. Though the work is no less demanding than it was this morning, you find yourself moving through it with greater ease, your body balanced and your thoughts clear. Others who shared the oak's shade seem similarly refreshed. There is almost a unity in your movements across the field, as though the shared experience has harmonized your efforts. When the work finally ends for the day, with the sun hanging low and golden above the distant hills, there is a deep satisfaction in surveying what has been accomplished. Great mounds of hay dot the field, ready to be collected into the ox carts tomorrow. Your contribution to this essential harvest connects you to the village, to the land, to the turning wheel of the year itself. As you walk the dusty path back toward home, your thoughts return to the oak and its ancient dreams. The practice of the meridiana sleep is older than any building in your village, older perhaps than human memory itself. In a world increasingly governed by the church bells that divide the day into rigid prayer hours, there is profound wisdom in this custom that honors the body's natural rhythms and the soul's need for communion with the natural world. You pass the village church where Brother Thomas is lighting candles for evening prayers. He nods in greeting, and you wonder if he understands the harmony between his Christian practices and the oak dreams that sustain the village through changing seasons. Some priests have tried to discourage the Meridiana tradition as pagan, but the wiser ones recognize that God's wisdom can speak through ancient trees as surely as through Latin texts. Tomorrow will bring another day of haymaking, another midday journey to the oak's embrace. The cycle will continue until the harvest is complete, and then new labors will structure your days as summer yields to autumn. But the meridiana sleep will remain constant, adapting only in its location, as work moves from field to field, from forest edge to riverside. As twilight deepens around you, turning the familiar outlines of village buildings into mysterious silhouettes, you carry the oak's wisdom like a precious ember glowing within. Its memories of centuries past and visions of seasons to come provide a context for your own brief life, not diminishing its importance, but placing it within a greater tapestry. You reach your humble dwelling just as the first stars appear overhead. After a simple supper of porridge and the last of your cheese, you settle onto your straw-filled mattress, wrapped in a woolen blanket against the night's growing chill. Sleep comes easily, your body tired from honest work and your mind peaceful with oak-blessed wisdom. Your evening dreams are different from the Meridiana visions, more personal, more concerned with immediate life rather than ancient knowledge. Yet occasionally, images from your oak sleep flicker through these ordinary dreams. The braided beard warrior, the woman in white, the underground network of roots speaking their silent language. In the days that follow, the rhythm continues. Morning work, midday oak sleep, afternoon labor. Each meridiana brings different visions, different wisdom, sometimes practical guidance about weather or harvests, sometimes deeper insights into the mysteries of life and death, sometimes simply the profound rest that comes from surrendering to something older and wiser than human concerns. There are special times when the oak sleep takes on even greater significance. When a village child reaches their 12th summer, they are brought to the great oak for their first adult meridiana, a rite of passage marking their transition from childhood. When couples wish to marry, they often come together to the oak, believing that shared dreams beneath its boughs will reveal the truth of their compatibility. When difficult decisions face the village, the elders gather for a communal meridiana, seeking consensus through the oak's ancient wisdom. As summer progresses toward harvest, you notice the subtle changes in the quality of light during your meridiana. Sleeps. The oak communicates these shifts through the dappled patterns that play across your closed eyelids, preparing your body and spirit for the coming change of season. There is profound comfort in this continuity, in knowing that countless generations before you have witnessed these same patterns, dreamed these same dreams. One particularly hot afternoon, as you settle into your familiar hollow beneath the oak, you notice a stranger among those gathering for the Meridiana sleep. His clothing marks him as a traveler from distant lands, perhaps a merchant or a pilgrim on the road to Santiago. He watches with curious eyes as the villagers take their places around the great tree, clearly unfamiliar with the custom. You gesture to an empty spot near your own, an invitation he accepts with a grateful nod. "Is this some local festival?" he asks in accented French, settling awkwardly onto the ground. "It is the Meridiana," you explain, using the simple words you would use for a child. The midday sleep beneath the oak. It brings rest to the body and wisdom to the mind. He looks skeptical, but too polite to argue. "In my country, we also rest at midday, but in our homes, on proper beds." You smile, not offended by his lack of understanding. "The oak dreams are different," you tell him. "You will see." When you awaken an hour later, you find the traveler sitting upright, his eyes wide with wonder. "I dreamed of places I have never seen," he whispers, "of people speaking languages I do not know, yet somehow I understood everything." "The oak was generous with you," you reply, using the traditional phrase. He touches the trunk reverently. "We have nothing like this where I come from. May I return tomorrow before I continue my journey?" You nod, knowing that the oak welcomes all who come with respect. Its wisdom is freely given. As summer yields to autumn, the quality of the Meridiana sleep subtly changes. The oak's leaves begin their transformation, and the light that filters through them takes on golden hues. Your dreams beneath the tree grow more focused on preparation and endurance. Visions of stored fruits and grains, of walls mended against winter winds, of communities gathered around hearth fires. The final Meridiana of the harvest season is always a communal event. The entire village, from eldest grandparent to youngest child, gathers beneath the great oak after the last sheaf is bound. Food is shared, stories are told, and then silence falls as everyone settles for the collective sleep. The dreams on this day are said to contain guidance for the winter ahead and glimpses of the spring to follow. As you drift into this special Meridiana sleep, surrounded by your entire community, you feel a profound sense of connection to these people, to this land, to the countless generations who have participated in this ritual before you. The oak's dreams on this day are particularly vivid, offering you a vision of your village through the centuries. Buildings rising and falling, faces changing, yet the great tree remaining constant, a living bridge between past and future. When you awaken, there is a moment of perfect stillness as the entire village emerges from the shared dream. Then, as always, the elder speaks the ancient words that close the harvest Meridiana. What the oak has shown, let us remember. What wisdom it has given, let us honor. The winter months bring a different relationship with the oak. Though the Meridiana sleep continues when weather permits, it takes on a more solitary nature. The bare branches offer less shelter, and the colder ground makes lengthy repose less inviting. Yet there are days when winter sun warms the earth enough for brief communion with the oak's dormant wisdom. Dreams of deep roots persisting through frozen ground, of life waiting patiently for the return of light. Even in the depths of January, When snow blankets the forest and the oak stands stark against white skies, the village maintains its connection to the tree. Children bring offerings of dried berries for the birds that shelter in its branches. Elders touch its trunk when passing, a gesture of respect and remembrance. The meridiana may become less frequent, but the relationship remains unbroken. And then, with the first warming days of spring, the cycle begins anew. The tentative unfurling of tiny leaves signals the return of regular meridiana sleep. The dreams shift again, filled now with images of growth and renewal. As you take your place beneath the awakening oak, you feel yourself part of something both ancient and eternally new. This sacred pause in the day's labor, this communion between human consciousness and arboreal wisdom. This is the gift of the meridiana, passed down through countless generations. The understanding that true rest is not merely the absence of activity, but active participation in something greater than oneself. In the sacred space between waking and dreaming, beneath the sheltering boughs of ancient oaks, medieval villagers found not just physical replenishment, but spiritual sustenance. A brief daily merging with the deeper rhythms of the natural world. As years pass and your own hair begins to silver, you find yourself becoming one of those who guide younger villagers in the practice of the meridiana sleep. You teach them how to choose their spot beneath the oak, how to position their bodies, how to open their minds to the tree's ancient wisdom. You explain that the meridiana is not merely indulgence, but necessary communion with the land, with ancestors, with the turning wheel of seasons. Listen with more than your ears, you tell a wide-eyed child experiencing her first formal meridiana. The oak speaks in the language of dreams, which is older than words. In sharing this knowledge, you become another link in the unbroken chain that stretches back beyond memory, guardians of a practice that honors both body and spirit, both practical need and sacred connection. The meridiana sleep beneath the oak remains a constant in a world of change, a daily pilgrimage to wisdom that sustains community through hardship and plenty alike. And so the cycle continues, season after season, generation after generation. This ancient ritual of midday slumber beneath venerable woodland sentinels, where dreams and memories intertwine, and human consciousness briefly touches the eternal. This part of your dream has ended, but your journey through history continues. Time shifts like mist through ancient forests, carrying you to shadowed glades where noble houses and humble servants alike sought wisdom in the sacred pause between sun's zenith and the day's waning hours. The oak's embrace beckons you into another world. You find yourself stirring from a daze, the world around you shifting from blurred colors into a scene of remarkable clarity. The air is different here, perfumed with subtle notes of lavender and rosemary that grow in neat rows along stone paths. Your eyes adjust to the gentle light that filters through a canopy of leaves above. You are reclining on a wooden bench padded with a linen cushion, positioned deliberately beneath the outstretched arms of an ancient oak tree that must have witnessed centuries pass beneath its boughs. This is not the village you just departed, but somewhere else entirely. A garden within the grounds of what appears to be a modest manor house of pale stone, weathered by time. The garden walls enclose this sanctuary from the outside world, creating a private paradise where nature has been gently guided rather than commanded. You realize by the quality of your clothing, finer than a peasant's but not ostentatious, that you occupy a different station in this new memory. The soft blue woolen tunic you wear bears subtle embroidery at the cuffs, marking you as someone in service to a noble house, perhaps a steward or a trusted advisor. The oak tree under which you rest is clearly the crown jewel of this garden. Unlike the wild oaks of the forest, this one has been tended with reverence over generations, its lower branches carefully pruned to create a perfect dome of shade. The grass beneath is trimmed short and interspersed with tiny white flowers that release a sweet perfume when disturbed by your movements. A small table fashioned from polished wood stands within arm's reach, bearing a silver cup filled with watered wine that catches the dappled sunlight. You breathe deeply, inhaling the distinct scent that only comes from gardens that have been nurtured by the same families for generations. The air carries notes of soil enriched by decades of careful cultivation, of herbs planted according to ancient knowledge, and of stone pathways warmed by the summer sun. From somewhere beyond the garden wall comes the distant sounds of a small town. The rhythmic strike of a blacksmith's hammer, the occasional call of a vendor, the bleating of sheep being moved from one field to another. As your fingertips trace the grain of the wooden bench, you feel the smoothness that comes only from years of use, the indentation left by countless bodies seeking the same afternoon respite you now enjoy. The ritual of the midday rest is observed differently here than in the peasant village. What was necessity born of exhaustion for the field workers has become, for the household of a minor lord, a practice of refinement and contemplation. You understand somehow that this daily moment beneath the oak is not merely rest, but a sacred time for reflection. The cup of watered wine beside you has been placed precisely where the intermittent beams of sunlight breaking through the leaves will not warm it beyond the perfect temperature. You lift it to your lips, tasting the subtle sweetness of summer berries infused into the wine, cut with cool water drawn from the deep well in the manor's courtyard. The tradition of adding fruit essence to the afternoon wine belongs specifically to this household, a small luxury that marks each day's respite. From your vantage point beneath the oak, you observe the garden in its entirety. Stone paths divide the space into sections. Herbs for the kitchen, flowers for beauty and fragrance, medicinal plants for the household remedies. Beyond a low hedge, you glimpse an orchard of apple and pear trees, still small with spring blossoms. The garden follows patterns established by monastery designs, bringing order to nature while respecting its inherent wisdom. This balance between human influence and natural growth reflects the philosophy behind the midday rest itself, acknowledging the body's needs within the structured day. You notice a book resting beside you, bound in leather with small brass fixtures at the corners. Opening it carefully, you discover it contains household accounts written in a neat hand. Your hand, you realize. Numbers and notes about grain stores, cloth purchased, candle wax needed. The last entry stops mid-sentence, as though you had been working diligently when the warm day and the oak's invitation proved too powerful to resist. There is no shame in this pause. Indeed, it is expected. Unlike the hasty naps snatched by field workers, your afternoon repose is built into the rhythm of the manor day. A bell sounds softly from the direction of the manor house. Not an alarm, but a gentle marker of time passing. You recognize it as the signal that Vespers will soon begin in the small chapel attached to the manor. The household observes the canonical hours, those ancient divisions of the day marked by prayer, and the afternoon rest falls intentionally between the prayers of sext at midday and none in the middle of the afternoon. This sanctified pause is embraced as part of God's design for human life, a recognition that even the Creator rested. The oak above you seems to respond to these rhythms as well. Its leaves rustle gently, though there is barely any breeze, creating a sound remarkably like whispered prayers. You recall the teachings about trees in Scripture, how they lift their branches in praise, how they stand as witnesses to human history, how certain trees were marked as holy sites where divine wisdom could be received. This oak, positioned so carefully within the garden, serves not merely as shade but as a living connection between earth and heaven. Your gaze drifts to the manor house visible through a carefully maintained opening in the garden foliage. The stone structure is modest compared to great castles, but represents substantial wealth and stability in this corner of the realm. Small, diamond-paned windows catch the afternoon light, and smoke rises lazily from the kitchen chimney. The household, has also paused in its constant activity. The Lord himself rests in his private chamber, while the lady perhaps reads by. An open window, even the servants have their turns to rest, rotating duties so that the essential work continues while each person receives their allotted time beneath one of the garden trees. The practice of the midday rest came to this northern land through several streams of influence, from the Mediterranean custom of the afternoon siesta, from monastic schedules that built in periods of contemplation, and from the practical wisdom of local people who understood the body's natural rhythms. What emerged in this garden, and in hundreds like it across the kingdom, was a uniquely medieval understanding that rest was not idleness, but part of a well-ordered life. A small movement catches your eye, and you observe a squirrel navigating the oak's branches above, pausing occasionally to chitter as though commenting on your presence. The creatures of the garden have their own established relationship with the humans who tend this space. Neither fully wild nor tame, they inhabit a middle ground, occasionally leaving small gifts, a particularly beautiful feather, an unusual stone, that the lady of the manor collects as omens and treasures. You close your eyes, allowing yourself to drift closer to true sleep, yet remaining aware of the garden's subtle symphony. The drone of bees moving methodically among the lavender stalks, the distant call of a hawk circling above the manor's lands, the whisper of oak leaves conducting secret conversations with the passing breeze. This state between waking and sleeping is itself cultivated, understood to be the moment when inspiration might visit, when problems that troubled the morning hours might resolve themselves without active thought. Indeed, as you hover in this twilight consciousness, the solution to a household matter that had been causing concern, how to store enough grain for the coming winter given the unexpectedly large number of travelers requiring hospitality, presents itself with sudden clarity. You will advise the Lord to convert the old brewing house, unused since the new one was built closer to the well. The idea arrives not through labored calculation, but as a gift from this sacred pause. A gentle touch on your shoulder draws you back to full awareness. Opening your eyes, you see a young girl, perhaps 12 summers, old, standing beside the bench. By her clothing, you recognize her as the daughter of the manor's steward, apprenticed to the lady of the house in the arts of household management. She offers a small bow, respecting the custom of never abruptly waking someone from their oak tree. Contemplation. "Forgive me," she says, her voice matching the garden's tranquil atmosphere. "But Father Ambrose has arrived earlier than expected and asks for the accounts of the chapel renovations." You nod, gathering the ledger book. Before rising, though, you touch the oak's trunk, a gesture so habitual you perform it without thinking. It is both gratitude for the shade and shelter and a small ritual acknowledgement of the wisdom received during your rest. The girl notices and smiles. She has been taught to observe and understand the significance of such customs. As you stand, Brushing a few oak leaves from your tunic, you become aware of how differently your body moves after the period of rest. The morning stiffness from hours of writing has eased, and your mind feels sharper, more capable of engaging with the precise figures the priest will require. This transformation is the tangible proof of what every person in the medieval world knows instinctively, that the midday pause is not a luxury, but a necessity for both body and spirit. Walking the stone path back toward the manor house, you pass other members of the household, emerging from different corners of the garden, each having observed the sacred pause in their own way. The master falconer has rested beneath a yew tree, his favourite bird perched nearby. The lady's maid chose a spot near the herb garden, where she gathered inspiration for new combinations to scent the household linens. Even the cook, whose morning began before dawn, found time to sit briefly by the small fish pond, watching the silver creatures dart among the water lilies. All move with the renewed purpose that comes from honouring the body's need for rest and the soul's need for contemplation. The ritual of the afternoon pause beneath the trees bridges the gap between physical necessity and spiritual practice, transforming what could be seen as mere indulgence into a sacred observance. You enter the cool dimness of the manor house, moving from the garden's open brightness into a world of stone and wood, of tapestries that muffle sound and catch draughts. The transition is another threshold between states of being, from contemplation back to action, from natural world to human creation. Yet you carry something of the oak's presence with you, a centeredness that will guide your words and actions through the remainder of the day. Father Ambrose waits in the small chamber used for managing the estate's business. As you present the accounts and discuss the progress of the chapel renovations, you notice how the clarity gained during your rest allows you to speak with precision and confidence. The priest, too, has observed his own midday contemplation. It is evident in his calm demeanour and thoughtful responses. This shared practice creates an unspoken understanding between you, a recognition that wisdom comes not only from activity, but from purposeful stillness. As the seasons turn, the practice of resting beneath the oak changes in character, but never ceases entirely. In autumn, as the tree's leaves transform to burnished gold and russet, you bring a heavier cloak to wrap around your shoulders during your contemplation. The oak offers fewer leaves, but greater visibility of the sky above, where geese form perfect, arrows pointing toward warmer lands. The garden prepares for winter's dormancy, yet still provides this essential space for human renewal. Winter brings days when snow dusts the oak's bare branches like delicate lacework. On such days, your rest might be briefer, or might take place on a bench positioned where the winter sun falls most directly. Yet even in the coldest months, the household maintains some form of the midday pause. Perhaps you simply stand beneath the oak for a few moments, watching your breath form clouds in the frigid air, before returning to the warmth of the hall. The continuity of the practice through all seasons reflects its fundamental importance to medieval life. Spring returns with a rush of new growth, the oak's branches sprouting tender green leaves that cast ever-changing patterns of shadow and light across your face as you rest. The first bees return to the garden, their industrious humming providing a counterpoint to your deliberate stillness. You watch as nesting birds claim spaces among the oak's branches, building their homes with careful attention to detail that mirrors the human cultivation of the garden below. Each day beneath the oak accumulates like the rings within its trunk, invisible but essential to your growth and stability. The wisdom gained during these pauses shapes decisions that affect the entire household, and by extension, the community that depends on the manor's prosperity. Solutions that seemed elusive during hours of active problem solving often present themselves unbidden during the afternoon rest. rising from some deeper well of knowing that can only be accessed through stillness. On a particularly warm summer day, when the oak's shade provides blessed relief from the unusual heat, the lord of the manor himself joins you on the garden bench. Though protocol would normally require you to stand in his presence, he gestures for you to remain seated, recognizing the sanctity of the rest period. For several minutes, you sit in companionable silence, two people of vastly different stations united in observance of this ancient practice. "My grandfather planted this oak," he finally says, his voice pitched low to match the garden's hush. "He brought the acorn from an ancient tree that grew near Canterbury Cathedral. The monks there told him it descended from trees that stood when Augustine first brought Christianity to our shores." You nod, understanding the significance. The oak is more than a living thing. It is a connection to history, to faith, to the continuity of human experience across generations. Its presence in the garden links this small manor to the great currents of medieval life and thought. "He taught my father, who taught me, that wisdom comes not only from books and teachers, but from allowing ourselves to be still enough to hear what the world wishes to tell us," the Lord continues. "Some call it indulgence, to rest in the day's middle, but I believe it the height of wisdom. His words articulate what you have always sensed but never fully expressed. That the practice of the midday rest is not merely physical recuperation, but a philosophy of life, an acknowledgement that human rhythms should align with natural cycles rather than constantly striving against them. This wisdom, passed down through generations, creates a continuity as strong as the oak's roots that anchor deep in the garden soil. As the Lord rises to return to his duties, he reaches up to touch a low-hanging oak branch, a gesture identical to your own habitual acknowledgement of the tree. In this moment, the structured hierarchy that normally separates Lord from servant dissolves briefly in recognition of shared humanity and shared reverence for the natural world. Throughout the medieval period, as political fortunes rise and fall, as fashions change in clothing and architecture, as new ideas challenge old certainties, the practice of the midday rest beneath the oak remains remarkably constant. Kings may war over territories, popes and anti-popes may dispute spiritual authority, but in gardens across the realm, people continue to seek wisdom in the sacred pause between morning's energy and evening's reflection. The oak in the manor garden witnesses generations of human lives, children who grow to adulthood, masters who give way to their heirs, servants who spend their entire lives within these walls. Yet the ritual remains, adapting to each new age while preserving its essential character. What began perhaps as simple physical necessity evolved into a practice that nourishes body, mind, and spirit equally. On days when duties prevent you from taking your full rest beneath the oak, you still make time to visit the tree briefly, to place a hand against its rough bark and draw strength from its steadfast presence. This momentary connection, you find, carries something of the same benefit as the longer pause. It reminds you that however urgent the day's demands might seem, they exist within larger cycles of time, represented by the oak's slow, patient growth. During one such brief visit, you notice something you had overlooked before, carved into. The oak's bark, partially grown over by the tree's natural healing, are initials and dates going back decades. Each mark represents someone who found significance in this same tree, who paused beneath its branches to rest and contemplate. Though the carving of a living tree would normally be discouraged, these small remembrances have become part of the oak story, a record of human lives intertwined with its own. You add no mark of your own, feeling that your connection to the tree needs no physical representation. Instead, you collect a fallen acorn, small and perfect, and carry it in your pocket for several days before planting it in a pot of earth kept on your chamber's windowsill. Whether this descendant of the great oak will ever grow to provide shade for future generations remains to be seen. But the act of planting connects you to both past and future, to those who planted the garden oak and to those who might someday rest beneath the tree your acorn becomes. As years pass and your responsibilities in the household increase, you find the midday rest becomes not less important, but more essential. Where once it provided recovery from physical exertion, it now offers necessary respite from the mental demands of managing accounts, mediating disputes, and anticipating the needs of a complex household. The nature of your fatigue has changed, but the oak's remedy remains equally effective. You notice, too, how the practice influences those around you. New servants who initially view the afternoon pause with suspicion, coming perhaps from households where constant activity was demanded, gradually embrace the custom as they observe its effects. Young apprentices learn not just practical skills, but the wisdom of balancing effort with rest, of listening to the body's natural rhythms rather than forcing themselves to unnatural exertion. One autumn day, as golden leaves drift down to settle on your shoulders during your rest, you overhear two garden apprentices talking as they work nearby, unaware of your presence. "My father would call this laziness," the younger one says, gesturing toward the various members of the household taking their midday pause beneath different trees. "He believes only constant work brings prosperity. And yet look at this manor," the older apprentice replies, "more prosperous than most, with happier servants and healthier livestock too. My grandmother taught me that forced work is never as fruitful as work that respects the body's needs. These people understand what many forget, that humans are part of nature's rhythm, not masters standing apart from it." Their conversation captures the philosophical underpinning of the practice you have observed all these years. The medieval understanding that human beings exist within natural and divine orders that should be respected rather than resisted. The midday rest acknowledges human limitations not as weaknesses to be overcome, but as indicators of how life should properly be lived. As you grow older, the oak too continues its steady growth, its branches reaching higher, its trunk growing ever more substantial. The relationship between person and tree deepens with time, each rest beneath its canopy adding to a lifetime of shared moments. You can tell the seasons and weather from subtle changes in its bark and leaves without needing to consult calendars or look to the sky. The oak has become not just a place of rest, but a companion in your journey through the years. On the day when you first notice your hands beginning to show the signs of age, the skin thinning, veins more prominent, a slight tremor when you hold your quill too long, you seek the oak's company with a new question in your heart. How will you continue to serve the household as your strength gradually diminishes? The answer comes not in words, but in the oak itself, which has grown more valuable to the garden with age, offering wider shade, deeper roots that prevent soil erosion, a more imposing presence that speaks of stability and continuity. You understand that wisdom accumulates like the oak's growth rings, invisible from outside, but giving strength and substance to everything you do. Your value to the household, like the oaks to the garden, will change with age but never diminish. This insight, received during the midday rest, transforms your view of the coming years from anxiety to acceptance. The ritual of resting beneath the oak continues through all life's transitions. When grief visits the household, the lord's eldest son lost in battle, the lady's mother passing after a winter illness, the garden becomes a sanctuary for private mourning. You observe members of the family seeking the oak's solid presence during their sorrow, sometimes talking softly to its ancient trunk, sometimes sitting in silence with tears flowing freely. The tree that witnesses joy also absorbs grief, offering the same steady comfort in all human emotions. On a spring morning, notable for its particular sweetness, as apple blossoms scatter like snow across the garden paths, you take your customary place beneath the oak with a sense of ceremony. 50 years have passed since you first entered service in this household, and today marks your retirement from active duties to an honored position as advisor and keeper of the manor's historical records. The midday rest that once prepared you to return to work will now extend into a different kind of productivity: the preservation of knowledge, the teaching of younger servants, the contemplation of a life fully lived. As if acknowledging this transition, the oak drops a small branch near your feet. Not broken by storm or disease, but naturally pruned, its purpose in the tree's growth complete. You recognize the gift for what it is, and gather the branch with reverence. Later, you will ask the manor's woodcarver to fashion from it a walking staff, a tangible connection to the tree that has sheltered so many of your life's significant moments. The medieval understanding of the human need for rest, contemplation, and connection to the natural world, embodied in the practice of the midday pause beneath the oak, offers wisdom that transcends its historical context. In a garden cultivated by generations of careful hands, you found not merely physical shelter from the sun, but a philosophy of life that honored limits, respected natural rhythms, and recognized wisdom's many sources. Each afternoon beneath the oak taught what no book or master could fully articulate: that the space between activities often holds greater significance than the activities themselves, that wisdom sometimes requires no effort beyond quieting the mind enough to receive it, that humans and trees and all living things participate in cycles larger than any individual life. As younger members of the household now seek the oak's shade for their own midday contemplation, you observe how the practice continues to evolve while remaining essentially unchanged. The medieval ritual passes to new generations not as a relic of the past, but as living wisdom, as relevant to their lives as it was to yours when you first discovered the oak's profound shelter. In your final years, when legs no longer easily carry you to the garden bench, a chair is placed at your chamber, window overlooking the oak. From this vantage point, you still participate in the daily ritual, observing the tree through the changing seasons, watching others find beneath its branches the same renewal you discovered there. The physical distance cannot sever the connection, formed through decades of shared silence and received wisdom. And when at last you close your eyes for the final time, it seems only fitting that your body will rest in the manor's small cemetery, where the afternoon shadow of the garden oak just reaches at midsummer. Even in death, you will participate in the ritual that defined so much of life, the sacred pause beneath branches that connect earth to sky, past to future, human to divine. This, perhaps, is the oak's most profound teaching, that rest is not the absence of life, but its fulfillment, not an interruption of purpose, but its deepest expression. In the medieval garden, beneath the oak's sheltering branches, generations found what humans in every age seek: moments of perfect balance between action and contemplation, between individual need and communal wisdom, between the fleeting nature of human life and the enduring cycles of the natural world. And so, the practice continues, outlasting any single human life, preserved not primarily in books or formal teachings, but in the lived experience of those who discover for themselves the wisdom of the midday rest, in gardens and orchards, in monastery courtyards and castle grounds, in humble village greens and carefully tended manors. The oak extends its invitation to pause, to breathe, to remember our place within creation's vast design. Ancient whispers carry you further back to where time moves by sundial shadows and church bells. The oak's gnarled arms reach across centuries, cradling souls in verdant embrace. Here, in the hidden heartlands, another story of repose awaits your dreaming mind. You find yourself awakening to the gentle sounds of a medieval monastery garden in the earliest hours of a summer morning. The air carries a peculiar clarity that seems foreign to your modern senses. Untainted by exhaust or industrial outputs, it fills your lungs with remarkable purity. Your eyes adjust to the soft pre-dawn light filtering through a small window of oiled parchment. You are lying upon a simple straw pallet, your back registering each subtle contour beneath the rough homespun sheet. The sensations are foreign, yet oddly comforting, like remembering something you've never experienced before. Around you, other forms stir in the dormitory. Brothers of the Cistercian order, their tonsured heads bowed in morning prayer, even before fully rising from sleep. You realize you are among them, dressed in the same rough woolen habit that scratches pleasantly against your skin. The simplicity of the garment feels liberating after the complicated layers of modern dress you're accustomed to. Here, in this 13th century monastery nestled in the rolling hills of northern England, your identity has seamlessly melded with that of Brother Thomas, a young monk only 3 years into his vows. The abbot's bell rings, a clear, pure note cutting through the pre-dawn silence. Your body responds automatically, rising with the others. No need for second alarms or snooze buttons here. The rhythm of monastic life is embedded in your muscles and bones as if you've lived it for years. Bare feet touch the cool stone floor, sending a shiver up your spine that fully awakens your senses. The dormitory fills with the soft rustling of habits and the occasional cleared throat as 20 men prepare for the day's first office. You join the silent procession down the narrow spiral staircase that connects directly to the north transept of the Abbey Church. The cool morning air carries the subtle scent of beeswax candles and old stone as you enter the magnificent church. Still dark at this early hour, the sacred space is illuminated only by a few carefully placed candles, their flames creating a constellation of golden light that reflects off the polished stone surfaces. Though austere by the standards of other religious orders, the Cistercian simplicity holds its own profound beauty. Unadorned columns soar upward, drawing your eyes heavenward in the same way the prayers soon to be chanted will lift your spirit. You take your assigned place in the wooden choir stalls, feeling the smooth oak beneath your fingers, polished by generations of brothers before you. The wood retains a slight warmth, as if holding the prayers of all who have sat here before. As the first notes of matins begin, your voice joins with the others in the ancient Gregorian chant. The Latin phrases flow from your lips with surprising ease, the melodies rising and falling in patterns your body remembers even if your modern mind does not. The acoustics of the church gather each voice, blending them into a single living prayer that seems to make the very stones vibrate in sympathy. After the morning offices conclude, you process with the others to break your fast. In the refectory, the morning meal is simple: a wooden bowl of hot barley porridge sprinkled with a few precious dried fruits, and a chunk of dense brown bread still warm from the ovens. You eat in silence while a brother reads from the scriptures, the only sound, besides his voice being the occasional clink of wooden spoons against earthenware bowls. The porridge fills your stomach with satisfying warmth, its nutty flavor enhanced by a drizzle of honey from the monastery's own beehives. The bread has a chewy crust and soft interior, tasting of wheat and wood smoke from the ovens. These simple flavors seem more vibrant than any meal you can recall in your modern life. As the meal concludes, the abbot rises and assigns the day's tasks. You feel a small thrill of anticipation when you hear your name, Brother Thomas, among those assigned to work in the scriptorium today. This is a privilege usually reserved for the more experienced brothers, a sign that your steady hand and careful attention have been noticed. But before the day's concentrated work of copying manuscripts begins, there are morning chores to complete around the grounds. You follow several brothers out into the herb garden, where the morning dew still clings to leaves of sage, rosemary, and thyme. The garden is coming alive with the day's first light, bees already humming among the flowering herbs. Your task is to harvest certain plants needed by the infirmarian for his remedies. With careful fingers, you select sprigs of lavender, their purple flowers releasing their distinctive fragrance as you touch them. The mint leaves release their cooling scent when pinched, and you gather them with the other herbs in a small wicker basket. The rising sun gradually burns away the morning mist, revealing the full expanse of the monastery grounds. Beyond the cloister and immediate gardens lie the larger agricultural fields where lay brothers work, and beyond those, the edge of the monastery's woodlands. Your eyes are drawn to a massive oak tree standing sentinel at the forest's edge. Even from this distance, you can make out its enormous canopy, spreading like a green cloud above the landscape. Something about the tree calls to you, stirring memories that seem both ancient and new. With herbs gathered and morning chores completed, you make your way to the scriptorium. The room is positioned to catch the northern light, steady and without direct glare, perfect for the detailed work of manuscript illumination. As you enter, the distinctive smell of parchment, ink, and pigments fills your nostrils. The scriptorium is not silent like other parts of the monastery. Here, the scratching of quills on parchment creates a gentle background rhythm, occasionally punctuated by the soft murmur of a brother working through a difficult passage or requesting assistance. The scriptorium master assigns you to continue work on a psalter begun weeks earlier. Taking your place at the writing desk, you feel a calm focus descend upon you. The tools of your craft are laid out with careful precision. Quills of different sizes, pots of black and red ink, fine pumice for smoothing errors, and burnishing stones for the gold leaf yet to be applied. The parchment page before you contains the partially completed text of Psalm 91, its opening letter awaiting your illumination. Time slips away as you work, your hands moving with practiced care. You prepare pigments, grinding azurite stones to create a brilliant blue, mixing it with egg white to create a paint that will retain its vibrancy for centuries. With a brush fashioned from squirrel hair, you apply the color to the ornate initial letter, your breathing slowing to match the deliberate pace of your work. The concentration required is both demanding and deeply peaceful, a form of prayer through creation. When the bell rings for the midday office of sext, you carefully clean your brushes and cover your pigments before joining the procession back to the church. The sun now stands high in the sky, and the church is transformed from its morning dimness. Light pours through the high windows, creating patterns of radiance on the stone floor. The prayers feel different at this hour, less mysterious than at dawn, more grounded in the day's reality. After sext comes the midday meal, slightly more substantial than breakfast. A thick vegetable pottage with chunks of turnip, onion, and dried peas floats in a savoury broth, accompanied by another piece of bread and, as a special treat, a small wedge of cheese from the monastery's dairy. The flavors are simple but nourishing, sustaining the body for the afternoon's labors. But before those labors resume, there comes the meridiana, the midday rest. This period after the meal is a sacred time in the monastic schedule, recognized by the rule of Saint Benedict as essential for maintaining both physical health and spiritual alertness. During the hot summer months especially, this rest extends longer, protecting the brothers from working through the most intense heat of the day. Most of the brothers return to the dormitory for this rest, but you feel drawn elsewhere, with permission from the abbot, granted with a simple nod that acknowledges your need for solitude. You walk beyond the immediate grounds toward that magnificent oak you noticed earlier. The day has grown warm, and the woolen habit feels heavy against your skin. Beads of perspiration form at your temples and along your back as you cross the open field. Drawing closer to the oak reveals its true magnificence. Its trunk is wider than 3 men standing with arms outstretched could encircle. Gnarled roots spread outward, breaking the surface of the ground before plunging back into the soil. The branches reach outward and upward in a complex network that suggests both strength and grace. This tree has stood witness to centuries. Perhaps it was already ancient when the first stones of the monastery were laid. Beneath the oak, the air is noticeably cooler. The dense canopy creates a shelter from the summer sun, casting patterns of dappled light and shadow on the ground. The grass here grows thicker and softer, as if specially cushioned for rest. You notice signs that this spot is well used. A slight depression at one particularly comfortable spot between 2 prominent roots. Small pathways leading to the trunk from different directions. You settle yourself against the trunk, feeling the rough bark against your back through the woolen habit. The tree seems to welcome you, its massive presence offering a different kind of sanctuary than the stone walls of the monastery. Here is a living cathedral, one that breathes alongside you. You adjust your position until you find the perfect spot, where a natural concavity in the trunk cradles your back like a hand cradling a precious object. Looking upward through the branches, you observe how the leaves move with the gentle breeze, creating a constantly shifting mosaic of green and blue. The sound of the leaves rustling together creates a soft susurration that reminds you of distant waves or whispered conversations. Birds call to one another among the branches, a blackbird's liquid melody, the cheerful chattering of sparrows, occasionally the harsh caw of a crow passing overhead. The warmth of the day, combined with your morning's concentrated work, creates a pleasant heaviness in your limbs. Without consciously deciding to, you find your eyelids growing heavier. This is not a sleep of exhaustion, but one of gentle surrender. The oak seems to encourage this surrender, its ancient presence a reminder that rest is part of nature's wisdom. Just as the tree itself experiences seasons of growth and dormancy, so too must the human body honor its need for activity and repose. As your consciousness begins to drift, you notice that you are not alone beneath the oak's generous canopy. Several other brothers have made their way here as well. Brother Martin, elderly and with knees stiffened by years of kneeling in prayer, sits with his back against a root, his weathered hands relaxed in his lap. Nearby, Brother William, the youngest of the novices, lies curled on his side, already deep in sleep with an expression of perfect peace on his youthful face. At a respectful distance, the abbey's herbalist, Brother Hugh, sits cross-legged, sorting through plants gathered from the forest edge. There is a tacit understanding among you all, though the rule calls for silence outside of necessary communication. Here beneath the oak, there is a deeper silence that needs no enforcement. It is the silence of shared rest. of communal understanding that this tree offers something the stone dormitory cannot. Here, the boundary between heaven and earth seems thinner, the connection between the divine and the natural world more palpable. Your thoughts drift to the manuscripts you've studied, how often the oak appears in both Christian and older traditions. In the scriptures, Abraham received divine visitors beneath the oaks of Mamre. In the lore of the land before Christian teachings arrived, the oak was sacred to Druids and considered a doorway between worlds. The monastery itself was built near this ancient tree, not to erase the old wisdom, but to transform it, to baptize the sacred space into a new understanding. As your consciousness continues to soften, hovering in that liminal space between wakefulness and sleep, you become aware of how the oak's roots must spread deep beneath you, mirroring the branches above. You imagine them reaching into the dark earth, drawing up water and nutrients, anchoring the massive tree against storms. There is something profoundly comforting about being suspended between these two networks. The roots below and the branches above, as if you are held in the very middle of creation. Sleep comes gently, carrying you into dreams that seem influenced by the oak's ancient presence. You dream of the tree through seasons and centuries, covered in snow, brilliant with autumn colors, withstanding lightning strikes and windstorms. You see generations of people finding shelter beneath it, pilgrims resting on long journeys, lovers meeting in secret, children playing, old men contemplating mortality. The oak stands witness to them all, offering the same generous shade, the same patient presence. In your dream, the boundaries between your modern self and Brother Thomas begin to blur. You see forward and backward in time simultaneously. You understand that this practice of resting beneath oak trees is not merely a medieval custom, but part of a human tradition stretching back to the earliest days when humans and trees first formed their silent partnership. The oak offers more than physical shelter. It provides a psychic anchor, a connection to something enduring in a world of constant change. The dream shifts, and you see the monastery grounds from above, as if flying like a bird. From this perspective, you notice how the buildings themselves form a pattern around natural features, the stream, the hills, and most notably, several ancient oaks that predate the monastery. The monks who designed this sacred space did not impose their will upon the landscape, but worked with what was already holy within it. The most sacred sites within pagan traditions became the most sacred sites in Christian practice, not erasing the old, but building upon its foundation. In your dream flight, you travel beyond the monastery to see other communities across the medieval landscape. Everywhere, oak trees serve as natural gathering places. In village commons, massive oaks provide the setting for local courts and meetings. Near field boundaries, farmers rest beneath oaks during their midday break, sharing simple meals and conversation. Even kings and nobles, for all their grand castles and halls, seek the shelter of ancient oaks for contemplation and counsel. The dream begins to fade as you sense a shift in the quality of light filtering through your closed eyelids. Gradually, you return to full consciousness, feeling remarkably refreshed. The angle of the sun has changed, indicating that an hour or more has passed. Your body feels different, lighter, more integrated, as if the oak has drawn out some tension you didn't realize you were carrying. Opening your eyes, you notice that most of your brothers have already returned to their duties. Only Brother Hugh remains, carefully wrapping dried herbs in small cloth bundles. He catches your eye and smiles gently, requiring no words to communicate his understanding of the oak's gift. Rising to your feet, you feel a moment of gratitude, so profound it becomes a wordless prayer. You place your palm against the oak's rough bark in a gesture of thanks before turning back toward the monastery buildings. The afternoon light has that golden quality that painters attempt to capture but never quite succeed. It transforms the stone buildings ahead of you, softening their edges and making the limestone glow, as if illuminated from within. Walking back across the field, you feel different than when you came, more attuned to the subtle music of existence, more present in your body. Back in the scriptorium, you return to your illumination with renewed focus. The blue pigment you mixed earlier has dried to the perfect consistency, and your hand moves with confident precision. The connection between your spiritual practice and artistic creation feels seamless now, the illuminated text becoming a devotion made visible. You work steadily until the bell calls you to Vespers, the evening prayers that mark the sun's descent. Days pass in the rhythm of the monastic hours: matins, lauds, prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, compline, each marking a different quality of light, a different energy in the body, a different aspect of spiritual attention. Throughout these cycles, the midday rest beneath the oak becomes your anchor, a practice you look forward to with quiet anticipation. You begin to notice subtle changes in yourself. Your attention during prayer deepens. Your hands become steadier when working on delicate illuminations. Your dreams grow more vivid and meaningful. The other brothers notice too. There are nods of recognition when you return from the oak, small acknowledgements of the transformation taking place. Summer progresses toward autumn. The quality of light beneath the oak changes as the angle of the sun shifts. Some days bring rain, and you must remain within the cloister walls, looking longingly toward the oak from sheltered walkways. On these days, you feel a subtle restlessness, a reminder of how integral the practice has become to your well-being. When autumn fully arrives, painting the landscape in russet and gold, the time beneath the oak takes on a different character. The ground beneath is carpeted with fallen leaves that crackle pleasantly when you settle yourself against the trunk. The air carries a crisp edge that makes your midday rest briefer, but somehow more intense. The oak itself prepares for winter, shedding its leaves gradually, revealing more of its magnificent structure. One particularly golden afternoon in late autumn, as you rest beneath the increasingly bare branches, Brother Elred, one of the oldest monks in the community, joins you beneath the tree. His presence is unusual. He rarely leaves the immediate vicinity of the cloister due to his advanced age. He settles himself carefully beside you, his movements deliberate and mindful despite the stiffness in his joints. "This oak," he says softly, breaking the customary silence, "has seen more abbots come and go than any chronicle's record." His voice has the quality of dry leaves rustling, fragile, yet carrying the weight of accumulated wisdom. You remain silent, understanding that the elder brother has more to share. "When I was a novice," he continues, gazing upward at the branches, "the abbot then, Abbot Richard, told me that this tree was already ancient when Saint Aidan passed through these lands, bringing Christ's teachings to the northern kingdoms. That would make it..." He pauses, calculating. "At least 600 years old now, perhaps more." The thought is staggering. 6 centuries of continuous life, of slow growth reaching toward heaven, while simultaneously digging deeper into the earth. "The brothers have always come here," Brother Elred says, gesturing with a gnarled hand that resembles the oak's own twisting branches. "Even before we understood why. It is good that you have found your way to this practice so early in your vocation. He falls silent then, closing his eyes. You do the same, but with a new awareness. The oak is not merely a convenient spot for rest. It is part of an unbroken tradition, a living link to generations of brothers who have sought renewal in its presence. As winter approaches, bringing shorter days and bitter winds, the midday, rest moves indoors for most brothers. But occasionally, on days when the winter sun shines with surprising warmth, you still make your way to the oak. Without its canopy of leaves, the tree's essential structure is revealed, the intricate network of branches, the perfect balance it has achieved over centuries of growth. Even in this dormant season, the oak has lessons to impart about the necessity of withdrawal and conservation of energy. During the deepest part of winter, heavy snow blankets the monastery grounds. From the window of the warming room, the only heated chamber besides the kitchen, you gaze out toward the oak. Its dark branches stand in stark contrast against the white landscape, collecting snow in the crooks of its limbs. Even at this distance, even in this season, you feel its pull. On the feast of the Epiphany, a rare break in the winter weather brings an unusually mild day. After the midday meal, you wrap your cloak tightly around your habit and make your way, through the snow, toward the oak. The trek is more difficult than in summer. Your sandaled feet, protected only by woolen hose, sink into the snow, which occasionally slips inside to melt against your skin. Reaching the oak, you find that the snow beneath it is thinner than in the open field. The massive trunk still radiates a subtle warmth, enough to create a small circle of bare ground at its base. You settle into this space, your back against the trunk. The cold air fills your lungs, exceptionally clean and crisp. The winter landscape stretches before you in pristine whiteness, the monastery buildings in the distance appearing like a heavenly city, with smoke rising from the kitchen chimney. In this barren season, your rest takes on a different quality. Instead of drifting into dreams, you remain in a state of alert meditation. The oak in winter teaches patience, endurance, the conservation of vital energy. You contemplate how the tree appears lifeless to an uninformed observer, yet beneath the bark, life continues, slower, more concentrated, but undiminished. As you sit in this contemplation, a movement catches your eye. A red fox trots purposefully across the snow, its russet coat brilliant against the white background. It pauses briefly, regarding you with alert eyes before continuing on its way. This glimpse of wildlife stirs something profound within you, a recognition that the monastic practice of cyclical rest mirrors what happens naturally in the world God created. When spring finally returns, it does so with the gradual persistence characteristic of northern lands. First come the subtle lengthening of days, then the appearance of buds on the oak's branches, so small at first they can barely be distinguished. The ground beneath the tree softens, and green shoots push up through the soil. Snowdrops first, then wild garlic, celandines with their bright yellow flowers. Your midday visits to the oak resume their regularity. You witness the daily miracle of spring's progression, the buds swelling and eventually unfurling into tender leaves that deepen in color as they mature. The birds return, building nests among the branches, filling the air with songs of territory and mating. Brother Hugh begins collecting young oak leaves for his remedies, carefully taking only what is needed, offering prayers of thanks with each harvest. In the monastery library, illuminating a text about the lives of the Desert Fathers, you find yourself incorporating subtle elements inspired by the oak into your designs. The curve of a branch forming part of a decorative border, the distinctive shape of an oak leaf nestled among more traditional motifs. The abbot notices but says nothing, understanding the integration taking place between your spiritual practice and artistic expression. As spring advances into its fullness, you begin to observe other brothers making their way to the oak during the Meridiana. Some come regularly, others occasionally, each finding their own relationship with the ancient tree. No formal instruction directs them there. It is knowledge passed through example rather than precept, an unwritten chapter of monastic wisdom. One warm spring day, as you rest beneath the now fully leafed canopy, Brother Ambrose, the monastery's master of novices, settles nearby with several young men newly entered into religious life. Their tonsures are still fresh, the skin pale where hair was recently removed. They fidget slightly, unaccustomed to the practice of intentional rest, still carrying the energies of the secular world they recently left behind. Brother Ambrose catches your eye with a small nod, silently inviting you to observe as he guides these newcomers. Feel the earth beneath you, he instructs them quietly. Notice how the oak draws no attention to its work, yet accomplishes more in its silent growing than we do with all our striving. The novices try to be still with varying degrees of success. One young man, barely more than a boy, closes his eyes immediately and relaxes into a natural pose of contemplation. Another shifts position repeatedly, struggling against his body's restlessness. Brother Ambrose corrects no one, allowing each to find his way into the practice at his own pace. The rule speaks of proper rest as essential to proper work. Brother Ambrose continues after a while. Here, we learn this wisdom not only from our Holy Father Benedict, but from creation itself. The oak knows when to grow and when to rest. It wastes nothing, not energy, not water, not time. In this, it is more perfectly obedient to God's design than we often are. You close your eyes, letting these words wash over you. After nearly a year of this practice, you understand what Brother Ambrose is conveying to his charges. The oak has become your teacher as much as any text or abbot. It has taught you patience, persistence, the value of deepening your roots before stretching toward heaven. Most importantly, it has taught you that rest is not mere idleness, but an active participation in the divine rhythm. Summer returns in its fullness, completing the cycle you have observed. The oak's canopy is now dense and deep green, providing more generous shade than when you first began this practice. Your body has changed too, grown leaner from the monastic diet, stronger from physical work, more attuned to the natural cycles of day and season. But the most profound change has been internal. The restlessness that once characterized your spirit, even in the early days of your vocation, has been replaced by a centered quality that others have begun to notice and seek out. Young brothers sometimes sit near you beneath the oak, not speaking, but absorbing something of your practice through proximity. The abbot has begun consulting you on matters requiring discernment, valuing the clarity that emerges from your thoughts. In the scriptorium, you have advanced to working on the monastery's most important commission, a complete Bible for the cathedral in York, each page a testimony to divine order made visible through human hands. One particularly hot afternoon, you arrive at the oak to find the abbot himself seated against the trunk. This is unusual. While he has never discouraged the practice, his many responsibilities typically keep him close to the monastery buildings. You hesitate, unsure whether to join him or seek another spot for your rest. The abbot opens his eyes and gestures for you to sit. "Brother Thomas," he says quietly, using your name for the first time in many months, "I have observed your devotion to this practice. You lower your eyes, uncertain whether approval or correction will follow. Next week," he continues, "a party of monks will travel to Durham to consult manuscripts in the cathedral library. I wish for you to accompany them." You look up, surprised. Travel beyond the monastery walls is rare for most brothers, reserved for those with specific missions or duties requiring engagement with the wider world. "You will find," the abbot says with the hint of a smile, "that the custom of midday rest beneath oaks is not unique to our house. Our Benedictine brothers in Durham have their own ancient tree, and I believe you will have much to learn from observing how our shared practice takes different forms in different communities." Understanding dawns slowly. This is not merely an errand, but a recognition of how your personal practice has matured into something worth sharing with others. The abbot is entrusting you with carrying this wisdom beyond the monastery walls, allowing it to cross-pollinate with the practices of other communities. "The oak teaches us many things," the abbot continues, "but perhaps its greatest lesson is that true strength comes from both stability and flexibility. Its roots hold firm while its branches move with the wind." He pauses, looking up at the leafy canopy above. "Our rule provides the roots, but practices like this," he gestures to the space around them, "these are the branches that allow our tradition to breathe and remain living." That night, as you lie on your pallet in the dormitory, you reflect on the journey that began with your first rest beneath the oak. What started as a simple physical need for coolness on a hot day has evolved into a cornerstone of your spiritual practice. The oak has become a sanctuary within the sanctuary, a living reminder of how divine wisdom is encoded in creation itself. Through summer heat, autumn glory, winter stillness, and spring renewal, the oak has demonstrated the perfect balance of activity and rest, of reaching upward while remaining grounded, of individual strength within community. These are not merely poetic metaphors, but practical wisdom for the monastic life, and indeed, for all human lives. As sleep approaches, you wonder about all those who have rested beneath oaks throughout history, not just monks in their ordered communities, but ordinary people seeking moments of respite from life's demands. Kings planning campaigns, mothers nursing infants, lovers sharing secrets, elders contemplating mortality, all finding in the oak's embrace a momentary stepping outside of time's flow. Your consciousness begins to blur, sleep and wakefulness merging as they often do at day's end. In this liminal state, you have a vision of oak trees across the landscape, each creating a circle of sanctuary beneath its spread. You see these circles overlapping, forming a network across the countryside, places where heaven and earth draw closer together, where human striving pauses to align with deeper rhythms. The practice you have discovered, or rather rediscovered, is ancient beyond reckoning. It will continue long after both you and the particular oak you have come to love return to the earth. Future generations will find their way to other oaks, seeking the same wisdom, the same renewal. Some will approach with formal spiritual understanding, others with only an instinctive recognition of what they need. The oak offers its shelter to all without discrimination. Your last thought before sleep claims you completely is a prayer of gratitude for the oak, for the wisdom of the rule that creates space for such practices, for the community that sustains them, and for the divine presence that speaks through these ancient trees. In this final moment of consciousness, you understand that what you have been practicing beneath the oak is nothing less than a return to Eden, a temporary restoration of humanity's original relationship with creation, when rest was not an interruption of work, but its natural complement. As your awareness dissolves into sleep, you carry this understanding with you, the oak's final and perhaps greatest gift. Even in a fallen world of labor and struggle, moments of paradise remain accessible to those who know where to look for them, and often they can be found in the dappled shade of an ancient oak, where time slows, perspective expands, and the soul remembers its true nature. Thank you for spending this quiet time with us, drifting through forgotten echoes of history. If this story brought you peace, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs rest. We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Until next time, sleep well, dream softly, and good night. This moment fades softly now. Let's continue on, deeper into the past.